Yo, what is up everyone, back here with another video. Today we're going to be doing a review of the tournament run I had in the Iron Nemesis store. I should actually take this towel off. I don't know why I still have it on. I took a shower before I made this video. But my hair is all dry. Anyways, this is gonna be a bit different than our other videos. Typically, I'll just normally post a team that I use, and just be like, oh yeah, this is it. Take the team, whatever. Bit different here. I'm gonna be showing you guys the open sheet of my team. I'm gonna go over the team, how it was played. Because my plan is to use Evil Dawn over the course of like however long Series 12 lasts, pretty much. I'm not going to be sharing specific EV spreads unless the team is outdated to the point where like it's not relevant to, or not outdated, but like it's not relevant to what I'm currently using. And obviously, since I'm currently using a lot of the stuff on this team, and I might be using this team anyways for other tournaments, I don't want to release the information yet. So hopefully you guys understand that. I know usually I'm very transparent with like the information on my teams, but this isn't something that's up on Patreon anyways. Like this is just straight up like just the one team that I actually want to keep private for myself. Everything else, I'm pretty open with. So yeah, but we're gonna go over the open sheet of my team, so you guys at least can see the sets. EV spreads, obviously, you guys are free to make your own EV spreads and try the team out. I just is something that I'm keeping, private. I will tell you that Venusaur is just 252, 252. Timid nature, like that's not crazy. It's Sash. But yeah. So pretty much we'll start from Groudon. So Groudon was pretty much a standard like Citrus Berry like Precipice Blade set. You could probably use a Groudon from like all my other teams to do this. Same with the Yveltal, right? Like you guys can fill in a lot of the dots here. It's just specific spreads I'm using, especially with Incineroar speed tiers. I don't really want to mess with that too much. So yeah, anyways. So Groudon Cinder Precipice Blade set. Basically this team was designed around having multiple cores. So pretty much the first core that I had was Groudon, Incineroar, Bronzong, and Yveltal. Typically, I found myself leading Yveltal and Bronzong, or Incineroar and Bronzong a lot if I were using this mode. Pretty much centered around getting Groudon in Trick Room, spamming Max Quake, and swapping in Yveltal and stacking those boosts on Yveltal or Bronzong. And if it was next to Bronzong, I would pretty much spam Iron Defense and just like basically have a super beefy Bronzong that couldn't die, right? And that was the main idea. Second mode I used was Incineroar, Koko, Venusaur, and Groudon. That mode was specifically into matchups like other Sun teams with Charizard. Koko gave me the necessary pins to deal with Charizard. The reason why Koko's so good is because it has a lot more power than Regieleki does, and it has better bulk that allows it to sustain itself longer. Also, too, it's able to utilize its coverage moves a lot better, and it has U-turn to actually pivot out. Along with that, I also stop sleep if like I'm not bringing my own Venusaur, so it just makes it like really helpful in that regard. Yeah, that's kind of the main idea with the Koko there. Then next we have Venusaur. So Venusaur obviously pretty standard. Just max timid sash so I could get as much like damage output and be as fast as I wanted to with it. Sash also kind of gives you a bit more like room for error with sleep powder. I ended up missing a lot of sleep powders, and Sash like kind of bailed me out during my tournament run. Like I was getting really unlucky. I missed so many sleep powders. So I'm really glad I had Sash. I think it's better than Koba Berry in this format, mostly because there are going to be a lot of times where you don't want to max Venusaur and you want to send to your max run other Pokemon. Then Incineroar, standard, Flare Blitz, Parting Shot, Throat Chop, Fake Out. It's not really too unique, I'd say. It's, just kind of a standard Incineroar. And then Bronzong with Leftovers. So Bronzong was, like, secretly the best Pokemon on this team, I think, besides, like, Koko. Koko and Bronzong pulled a lot of weight in my Swiss games. For their each like for both of their unique roles, right? Bronzong was crazy because it basically gave me a free win con. If I were able to position myself properly and like stack boost properly, I could pretty much just play to a point where like my Bronzong would just sweep the whole team and I'd just win the game. Also, Iron Defense Bronzong actually matches up really well in the Sun teams if you remove like their special attackers, because typically Sun teams like using Groudon, Zacian, and Incineroar. So pretty much what I was able to do is like remove the Charizard or remove the thing that could actually hit the Bronzong, and then just stack Iron Defenses and just body them. Obviously, if they did Sacred Sword Zacian, it's a little trickier too, but like you can normally play around it, right, and just kind of weaken it. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it for the team as a summary. Nothing too much I changed. I really feel like this team was pretty optimized. I might, like, obviously shift around, like, some EVs or, like, maybe some sets. But, like, for the most part, this felt really good. So, I was really happy with how the team played and how it turned out. I honestly was so confident I would win the whole tournament. I just think the last matchup I pulled was just really rough, and I didn't adjust fast enough. I think I adjusted fine game 2, but I got a bit unlucky. That being said, I guess I got a bit lucky too, but it was like one of those matchups you kind of need luck a bit in your favor. But yeah, anyways, so that was my team. So now we're going to go from round 1 up. I'm going to talk a little more in depth for the top cut part. But for the Swiss, I'll kind of give a quick overview. So first was if you guys know the team, like, this is a really free matchup. I mean, you have Sun to counteract Kyogre's Weather and to invalidate the Regieleki. You have a Weather Ball Venusaur, which absolutely stomps Ferrothorn if it comes. Venusaur also walls the Regieleki. Yveltal absolutely destroys Calyrex. If you're in Sun, like, Kyogre's not doing that much damage. And then even having your own Incineroar versus this is like kind of useful because it gives you another thing to wall Calyrex, right? I'm pretty sure that's what I ended up bringing. I didn't bring my Coco here because I didn't want to power up their Regieleki with their electric moves. And I'm pretty sure they led Whimsicott into me with like Regieleki, I think. And I was pretty much able to neutralize that pretty quickly. But yeah, nothing too complicated. I felt like that was pretty easy. This matchup was kind of tricky. I didn't end up seeing this opponent again. One thing of note in this matchup particularly was that I ended up playing versus like no Spirit Break Grimmsnarl. And because they didn't have Spirit Break, it gave them a little more trouble than I guess they necessarily would have had. But they were still able to beat me pretty comfortably because it was just like a combination of like poor play, I think, because I was still like, you know, obviously getting warmed up into it, and also like just letting the Palkia do too much damage to the point where like my team was weakened too much to where I couldn't deal with Zacian endgame, right? And like that was really troublesome because it was just able to do too much, you know. But yeah. And then next up was versus Rebecca. So this matchup was weird. This is the first time I saw like Seismitoad, you know. Seismitoad is actually something that I'm gonna specifically talk about when I do a meta trends video, but I was really surprised with how often this Pokemon popped up. I even played an exhibition match like right before I started playing this tournament versus like a player from France. I actually ended up playing him round 7 as well, and I'll kind of talk about how that impacted the match. But like it was really interesting because it's not a Pokemon you'd expect to see, but its niche is basically hitting Zacian and also like being okay versus Kyogre because you have Power Whip. So you can hit like both those Pokemon. So it's something that popped up a lot that I'm kind of impressed by. But yeah, it was overall like kind of an easy matchup for me. I mean, you can kind of wall the Duskmane and like Sleep Powder it and kind of disrupt it that way. I felt like I had more than enough options here to just kind of put myself in the lead, and that was like really apparent when I had like the Evil Dawn combination and then like Venusaur and Ensign. So felt pretty comfortable in this matchup. Wasn't too tricky. Obviously Dustmane Necrozma is kind of weird, but like I'm able to like kind of parting shot around it. Dustmane Necrozma is just so weak to Ensign, even with weakness policy. So next up is versus Waji, I think his name is. Anyways, so he was running a pretty standard Zacian Sun team. I was pretty effortlessly able to beat him, mostly because I had the Coco, Instant, Groudon, and Venusaur mode, and if like the team isn't too much of a variation, I'm pretty comfortably able to beat it. Coco was a huge asset in this game because you pin the Charizard. You also have Airstream for Venusaur. You also have Max Lightning, which can destroy Grimmsnarl. And then you have Thunderous, which can do like a ton of damage, right? So it was just a ton of use for Coco here. It ended up making a huge difference, right? Like I was able to really do a lot. Overall, I'd say that Coco was really helpful in the Sun matchups, which sounds weird because there's a Groudon, but like helps versus all the partners, right? But yeah. And then round 5 versus Zardochar. I ended up playing versus Zardochar round 5. So there was a whole thing with the USPA tournament that I played in. Basically, I had ended up like showing up late, and I was like, hey, can I play from like round 2 with like a loss or whatever? And they got me in, but like I replaced Zardochar, which was kind of funny because they were having network issues. So I was playing under Zardochar, which it was weird. It was like kind of dumb, but like whatever. Anyways, and then it was funny because I lost like, you know, round 3 anyway, so it didn't really matter. But I ended up playing versus Zardochar in Swiss, you know, so I was like, oh, that's kind of funny, you know. So this matchup was pretty free, to be honest, mostly because this match, like this restricted pair, doesn't really pair up well into Yveldon. I have Yveltal to pin the Calyrex. I have like, you know, Foul Play into like the Landorus, right? And I can also kind of pressure this team with Venusaur a decent bit because there's no like sleep immunes or like besides Amoonguss, but then they have to use up a slot for that, which isn't really optimal to everything else. I just felt like I had a lot of leverage in this matchup. Like I didn't bring Coco here because I didn't feel like it was that useful, and I could just go for Sleep Powders with Venusaur anyway. So I kind of abused the Sleep Powders with Venusaur. Used Groudon to pin the Zacian, and then I obviously had Yveltal as well, which kind of helped out here. Along with Incineroar to swap in if Amoonguss was brought, which it wasn't. So a pretty straightforward match. Wasn't too hard to deal with, I feel like. I definitely it's a cool team. I actually don't think this is a bad team. Out of all the teams I played, I felt like this was one of the better ones. It just didn't have a good matchup to me. Also with round 6 actually. So I actually played versus David Ness in Swiss. I ended up beating him in top 4, but I'll talk more about that later. First matchup, I was just kind of unfamiliar with the matchup and how I was gonna play it. Game 1, I kind of just like lost. I think it was really tight. Like I think I ended up losing on something like really minuscule. Game 2, I ended up losing, I think, just because I kind of played poorly. Bronzong actually was a huge help, and I'll kind of discuss that in the next time we talk about this match. But anyways, pretty much into this matchup, I had to immediately pressure and like kind of remove Calyrex if I could. And basically, I just not positioned myself well. I thought this team was really good. This was a really strong team, actually. And I was really happy to like see it do well because I really think it actually deserved its placement. But yeah, I had to really respect the Thunders. It was actually Defiant here. Don't be deceived. It was actually Defiant. And this was obviously Chlorophyll. But yeah, we put on a good amount of pressure. I really had to be careful here. And I just ended up not playing up to par to beat it. And it was a disadvantage. Like, it was a disadvantage matchup for them on paper. But because they had stuff like Thundurus, like Grimmsnarl, Ensign, like Venusaur, like they had a lot of options. I think both games they led Venusaur, Ensign into me. But yeah. Then over here we have round 7 versus Domingo. So extra context for this match. So basically I had lost an exhibition match to Domingo literally like 5 hours before we played this match, right? And because I had played the match versus him, I actually had a lot of matchup familiarity here. So I kind of knew what to do versus him, and that actually really helped me. So basically, this seems pretty strong, actually, in my opinion as well. I think the Seismitoad actually was pretty well used here. The Seismitoad wasn't brought with me because I just have a Venusaur, right? But pretty much here was just leveraging my Coco Ensign and then setting Bronzong and like going off with Groudon and Trick Room. And basically the way I was able to win here was just going crazy with the Groudon and Trick Room. I learned that the Trick Room adaptation was like huge here, and like the Coco Ensign lead was basically mandatory to cover for like as many of Domingo's leads as possible. Obviously, if there's a Seismitoad adjustment from Domingo, I would have had to adjust, but like luckily Domingo just went with the same mode twice. Which was Ensign's Aptos lead, because it worked versus me in our exhibition match, right? So no reason to change. Another thing to note, Domingo also had Scarf Ogre, which kind of allowed me to pin it pretty easily. Once I got Bronzong and Groudon and Trick Room, I was able to just spam Iron Defense and like Max Quake, and it was like huge. Bronzong actually turned up in this match and was like a really big deal. Bronzong actually turned up in a lot of matches I didn't think it would, and just did like a crazy good job. But yeah, it ended up being like close, but I ended up winning. I think it was close game 2. I'm not 100% sure. Anyways, so I played top 32 versus Javier. This is now the second day, right? I didn't really prep too much going in second day. If you guys know me, I don't like prepping, like spamming prep the day before or like cut or whatever. Just mostly because I feel like if you spend too much time looking at matchups and like worrying about it, like you won't play it your best of the day of. And like since it was close sheet anyways, I didn't feel like doing the extra research to like look for them. So I was like, I'm just gonna play better, like, and find out what they're using. This is a kind of cool team. I just had matchup advantage here, honestly. I was able to leverage my Venusaur really easily. Even though I whiffed a few powders, I was just able to kind of get off sleep powders. And, like, I called every single swap out on, like, slept mons. So, like, I was just able to put, like, other mons asleep, and it just made it really impressive for the opponent. Max Groudon really turned up here. I ended up living a Max Geyser, I think, while my Groudon was maxed in Rain from the Ogre with, like, a couple Snarls on it, or, like, Quakes or up or something, which is actually huge. I also had Shadow Ball P2 to proc the Necrozma. It was okay. I felt like because they only had Shadow Ball, it really limited their coverage that they could use to hit me, because they were, like, Shadow Ball, Eerie Impulse, Recover, Trick Room, right? So I felt like I was a pretty decent position majority of the match. I was able to snipe the Landers really early in the game 1. I think they had led Landorus and Necrozma or something like that. I forgot what it... No, Landorus P2 I think it was. And I just turned one foul plate and like Leaf Stormed into it and just removed it. But yeah, it was pretty straightforward. I wouldn't say it gave me too much trouble. Obviously through the 2-0. Then top 16 versus Padaleck. I think this is easily the best set of the entire day. Like, I think best in terms of like, it was the most fun and like back and forth. So basically versus Padaleck, it was a game of like catch the Charizard. Game 1 I was able to manage the Zard pressure really well. I had Coco out. I was able to pretty much stomp the team. Game 2, I put myself in a bad position. I got Trick Room up, but I wasn't really able to capitalize off of it. And also the Charizard just went too crazy. It did too much damage. It kind of ran through the team. I didn't really do a good job of preventing it. I brought Coco back game 3 because in game 2, because I didn't have Coco, I had nothing to pin the Zard. besides Groudon, but like it wasn't on the field at the time, and like if I had Coco on the field, it would have been better. And at that point, we were both kind of bringing the most optimized brings we could. It ended up being really close. I don't want to spoil the ending because it was actually really cool. But what I will say is, like, Coco turned up. Coco absolutely fucking popped off. Like, it was so good. Ooh, I think I said curse word. Hopefully YouTube doesn't get mad at me for that. Anyways, but yeah, it absolutely popped off. Like, it was crazy. It was really, really good. Super, super cool to see it do well. But yeah, no, it was good mon, and it did a really good job in the set. Also, too, you know, Padillac played really well, so it was really close. But yeah. And, alright, so, to explain this quickly, top 8, we just got to buy, Joey, Justified Joey, he's actually on one of the teams I was on for, like, EGL, it's a team league or whatever, he had to go to work, so, I got to buy, which was kind of funny. So I was just kind of sitting there like, oh, okay. And I just like watched some like World Champ videos or whatever. So unfortunately, no info in the top 8. I actually don't even know what they were using. So, you know, whatever. And then here we rematched Davidness. So this time I made sure to leverage the Bronzong a lot better. Both games I brought Bronzong and both games I utilized it, I'm pretty sure. I think both games I made sure that I was pressuring with the Bronzong immediately. And I set Trick Room both times and like won the game, right? First time I think I led Ensign and like... No, actually, I think I leveraged Venusaur the first game. I'm not 100%. This will be something to double check. I just know that Bronzong was like huge in the second game. Because that's the one that's more memorable to me. And I was able to snipe the Calyrex immediately and like force a 50-50 with the Sucker Punch. Obviously, you guys can watch the VOD if you guys would like the actual details. More so is just about pressuring the Calyrex. And as soon as I removed the Calyrex, Bronzong was pretty free to just like kind of sweep the rest of the team with Groudon and Trick Room. So that was the main idea behind the team. But yeah. I felt like this was really well played. I felt like I adjusted really well, and I was really happy with how the match turned out. Now, finally, for this matchup. This was a demonic matchup. Pretty much, like, my only chance of winning this was cheesing it with Bronzong. It ended up being Assault Vest Ferrothorn, which in theory sounds good, but when you don't know it's Assault Vest Ferrothorn, it can mess you up, because Game 2, I was in a much better position, and Ferrothorn ended up maxing and overgrowthing into my Groudon. Obviously, I didn't know it was... you know, a max, what's it called, offensive Ferrothorn, completely destroyed my Groudon. And it basically lost me the game, because if I had preserved the Groudon, I would have been in a much better spot the whole game. But because I allowed it to get that easy snipe, I had less pivoting options, and pretty much I was just able to get sniped, and from there it was just really bad, right? The interesting thing too is that Bronzong actually could have 1v3'd, but I ended up getting crit by, I think it was a Behemoth Blade from Zacian that crit me, and I would have been able to win probably, but I just got kind of unlucky, you know, so it happens. But you know, that's the game, and like my opponent still positioned themselves well. Game 1 I just didn't play right, and like Zacian Kingdra ran through me. Game 2 was just super close and ended up coming down to Bronzong, you know, getting crit. But that's how it goes, you know. It's like you can't always play the best matchups. It's just unfortunate that the worst matchup I could have played was probably in finals, you know. But it is an interesting team. It's actually Support Thundurus on this team as well, worth noting. I'm pretty sure there's like a, you know, Paste or something running around somewhere. But yeah, no. It was a overall like good tournament run. I think like my highlights of the run that I would recommend you guys personally check out. My favorite set I think was the top 16 versus Padillac. If you guys are looking for the best showcase of Bronzong, I definitely think it's going to be top 4 versus Davidness. I just felt like that was the best like showcase of it. And if you guys are interested in like other games, I would probably say there was another game where I like walled with Bronzong. I actually ended up maxing Bronzong in me and Davidness first match. So if you guys are interested in seeing that, that might be cool. That'll be in the day 1 VOD, and then day 2 VOD. I'd probably say top 16 was the most exciting out of the bunch. But yeah, I mean, overall, fun tournament. Thank you to Javier for hosting it. Javier, IR Nemesis. And yeah, it was super fun. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this kind of video. Let me know if you guys would like to see kind of videos like this after I finish tournaments in the future. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the open sheet. I'm sorry that I can't provide the EVs. You know, it's just obviously something I've been working on. So yeah, but thank you guys so much for all the support. I incredibly appreciate it. And I will see you guys on the next video. Peace.